Hi.
Good morning, Sarah. You ready to get started?
Yes. There is a family I wanted to discuss with you first. So, I have been seeing Anna for several weeks. Her father recently passed away in Mexico. So she's having a difficult time. I suspect she's dealing with some depression. I'm thankful that she's seeing a therapist because I think she might have a bigger issue. She tells me she talks to her father daily. She built something at home called an ofrenda, I think, to communicate with him. She says it helps her feel not so sad. So I would like to refer her for a psychiatric consultation to evaluate for psychosis. But I wanted to talk it through with you first because I'm just not sure.
Hey, that's interesting. And I understand your concern. I wonder, though, have you looked into what an ofrenda means? And whether maybe you are viewing Anna's behaviors based off of your different cultural backgrounds? I've learned in my experience to slow down and take culture into consideration. Certain practices in Anna's culture might help her to grieve or cope with the loss of her father. So before we decide whether we're concerned about psychosis, I think that we're going to need more information.
I didn't really think about it like that. I was so focused on identifying her needs and areas where we could best support her. But I'm going to talk to Anna today, and I'm going to ask her about how her family's culture has been helping her during this difficult time.
That's a great plan. It's always worth it to take the time to get to know a person's full story. Sometimes in our assessments, we rate things as needs when they're not, or we miss meaningful strengths. When we assess families, we have to consider culture, and it helps to build trust within the relationship.
It's good to know that I can take my time. I'm trying to rush to go quickly through the assessment so I can get to the helping part of our work. I know that if I'm off base, though, that Anna will lose trust in me, and I don't want that.
Oh, I doubt that you will now that you know. Now, cultural humility is a journey, but well worth the time. It's a great way to understand our own worldviews and identities, but it's also a great way to show others that we're listening and that we care about the things that are important to them. Service-providing systems are designed as a reflection of the culture and the values of privilege. Certain concepts, such as what is normal and what is broken, have been skewed for decades. So, in our line of work, we want to ensure that we are listening and responding to all of the needs of the families in the ways that they're represented. I wanted to talk to you about that family that you brought up last week. I believe the mother's name was Fatima?
Yes. They kept missing their appointments, so I scheduled a home visit. But when I knocked on the door, she wouldn't answer. She seemed afraid. She told me she wouldn't speak with me without her husband being present. That made me think that she might be in danger. Should I have gotten law enforcement involved for a wellness visit?
Well, what happened?
She told me through the door that it's customary for a husband to speak on her behalf of their family, but I don't know. There's something odd about that.
Well, I'm curious. What happened to make you think that Fatima was afraid?
Well, she seemed avoidant. She didn't make eye contact, but now that I'm thinking about it and after we just talk about Anna, I probably shouldn't be jumping to conclusions without more information, right?
Exactly. But that's okay. Let's talk through this. We'll work through it together. What else was going on around the house?
Nothing really. There were children playing on the inside. Everything seemed okay.
So, it is important to consider safety. The outcome could be harmful if we don't. However, I believe that this is another important opportunity for you to learn about Fatima's cultural background. Avoiding eye contact could be a way of showing respect or even show hierarchy within the family. So before we rate the assessment with concerns of conflict or safety needs, we definitely want to make sure that we're understanding fully her background, family traditions, and gender roles. Take this work with Fatima's family as another valuable invitation to learn more about culture.
That makes so much sense. And thank you for talking through this with me. I know this kind of conversation can make me feel like a little bit uncomfortable, but the last thing I want to do is miss something that's important for a family getting what they need.
Oh, of course, I completely understand. And I am here whenever you need to discuss anything at all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are so many examples of how we can consider culture in our practice with families. A family who speaks loudly at home, or even in meetings with a care manager, may appear to be fighting, when for them, their tone is perfectly normal. An assignment with a person who is fasting. If we don't ask the right questions, our initial assessment might be that they have an eating disorder. A person with prior experiences of discrimination and misrepresentation in the system, who shows emotional restraint due to mistrust. A hasty assessment might mistakenly rate them for depression. A child from a bilingual household may be perceived as having developmental needs and as being behind in speech milestones. But patience and careful observation might show that child to be perfectly proficient in their native language. Maybe you can think of other examples of bias you've encountered personally. Were they acknowledged and addressed once you took the time to get to know and understand others?
Cultural humility prompts us to ask questions and foster a deeper understanding of practices and beliefs. Considering culture before determining ratings is a process of slowing down, relying on teamwork and collaboration to acknowledge and sidestep the bias that resides in all of us. If we rely solely on our own impressions, bias will surely play a part in our assessment decisions. When we slow down and seek more information, not only do those we work with benefit, but our views are also broadened. This is the heart of cultural humility and culturally responsive care. In order to avoid misratings in a person or family's story, remember, approach your assessments with cultural humility.